You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, school staff shortages hit the 4 states, but a construction company in Wichita has a plan to help out.
No worries, even though that's quite an ominous sight outside of Television City. By the time we talk about the weekend, we're going to get spoiled temperature-wise. The latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And auto fatalities in America have declined for decades, but that number starts to rise as the White House announces a new plan for road safety. All that and more coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. On Thursday, Oklahoma executed a man for killing 2 hotel workers during a robbery back in 2001. And a small group of people gathered to protest the execution outside the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAllister. Authorities say the now 46-year-old Donald Grant killed Brenda Mikalia and Felicia Suzette Smith, so there would be no witnesses to his robbery. Mikalia's sister spoke to the media after Thursday's execution.
There was a time when there was once doubt that justice would ever be served, and now there is none, and we can move forward. And the memories of the murder, the trial, and the years spent waiting can be replaced with happier memories of Brenda.
This was the first execution in the U.S. in 2022 and the third in Oklahoma since the state resumed lethal injections in October. Before that, executions had been halted in Oklahoma for nearly 7 years. 2 of the 9 suspects in a 2020 murder in Lawrence County, Missouri learned their fate. A judge sentenced 23-year-old Gary Hunter Jr. to 40 years in prison and 26-year-old Deanna Parks to 30 years. Both took plea deals in the murder case of Sarah Pasco. Prosecutors say in 2020, Hunter and Parks, along with 7 other suspects, kidnapped Pasco and a second woman, drove them to a well, and then shot them and left them for dead. This is an image of that well. Pasco was shot once in the head and died. Prosecutors say the second victim hid under Pasco's body and pretended to be dead as Gary Hunter Jr. fired into the well. Authorities say that woman survived and was able to tell investigators where they could find Pasco's body. Another school shortage brought on by the pandemic, not enough substitute teachers. It's become so dire some schools have struggled to stay open. In Wichita, Kansas, a construction company is stepping in to help. The CEO of Hutton Construction says the plan is to give 5 extra PTO days to all 275 team members to use to sub or para in classrooms through the end of the year.
Our schools were just having a really hard time keeping teachers in the classrooms, and we thought that maybe that's something that we could help with.
Some employees are already excited about the opportunity and are getting started with the sub process. They'll get their regular salary pay on top of pay they earn while subbing. Missouri Governor Mike Parson is calling for increased funding for higher education in the proposed state budget for the next fiscal year. Some of that increased funding would go to Missouri Southern if the budget passed. One impact would be a $1.4 million increase for the school's core budget. It would also give the university $30 million for a health science innovation building.
Yeah, I think our campus community is very pleased and hopeful based on the governor's recommendations, both for the core budget increase and the one-time funds, including for capital.
The budget would also provide more than $700,000 for a proposed Center for Digital Media and Virtual Production. 2 Southeast Kansas cities receive a share of $23 million in federal grants to increase public safety and health care access in the state. The NEOSHO Memorial Regional Medical Center will rebuild and repair 3 boiler units with a $175,000 grant. $35,500 grant for the Neosho Police Department will fund new equipment and furniture for its new offices. The department's old offices were closed in 2016 due to the condition of the building. The officers are currently housed in City Hall until the completion of the new building in a few months. Well, if you're looking for a new career opportunity, Pascal Air, Plumbing and Electric may be looking for you. Pascal's looking to expand its operations on Friday. That's today. From 11 to 1, they're hosting a hiring event and open house. Experienced HVAC installers, plumbers, and electricians are invited to attend. Pascal is also introducing an apprentice training program to the market. The event is being held at 2305 Missouri Avenue in Carthage. Well, Mickey Mouse's Ladies Love is getting a makeover. Gone is the red polka dotted dress. Disney says Minnie Mouse will debut this new look at Disneyland Paris. It's kind of a French look, I guess. The company calls it the first ultra chic pantsuit for Minnie. The outfit is blue and black polka dotted with a matching bow. Her heels have also been replaced with sensible black shoes. British fashion designer Stella McCartney designed the look in honor of Women's History Month in March.
I was about to say, it's one thing to get a new look.
I hope it's just temporary, not gonna lie. I like the classic Minnie. She's a mouse. I mean, it's a mouse.
Well, I know that Walt Disney's got pull throughout the entire world, but when you have Stella McCartney designing your clothes,
Yeah.
okay. Good for her. It's not what you know, it's who you know, evidently, in the Disney world. If you're like, hey, Stella, can you
I've watched
can you
a
please
lot
do
of
this?
Minnie and Mickey Mouse cartoons through the years, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and stuff, and like Minnie had like jogging suits and she had other clothes too. She didn't always wear the dress. She wore what suited the activity she was doing.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I probably haven't paid that much attention.
And Minnie also like designed bows. Like Minnie herself was a fashion designer and owned a clothing boutique.
Yeah, I remember that from
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. I've got kids, people don't
So it's
judge.
only fitting that
Yeah,
a
don't judge.
fashion designer is working with her now.
It's kind of an ominous look outside of Television City. There it is. With the cloud cover that's moved in from the north right there. This is, of course, facing off to the east, but now that it's over us, yeah, it's kind of a neat look, though. And eventually we'll get plenty of sunshine. We're just going to have to wait a couple hours for the clouds to move over. What it has done is really stabilized our temperatures. We haven't had much movement. Chanute was our only place earlier that was at 30, and now it's slipped down to 29. So we're ranging in between about 23 and 29 degrees. Of course, the big talker weather-wise this weekend is going to be what transpires along the Atlantic and the East Coast. Those are all the watches and warnings. You've got about 55 million people that could be a part of this. It's almost twofold too, because you've got this system that's working through the Ohio River Valley, making its way toward the northeast. You also have a big low pressure system right here that's hanging off the Atlantic coast that's going to combo with that. Now you get to our neck of the woods. Hey, we can't beat this. That's clear and as clean as can be. We just need those clouds that just kind of squarely hang over us. Just our highlighted counties, it seems, to dive off to the southeast and give us some afternoon sunshine. But eventually they will, and we will be up into the high 30s. We'll throw up a 40 every now and then. We won't have widespread 40s, but just wait until Saturday and Sunday. How about working up into the 50s for our last weekend of January?
All right, well, coming up, Michael Cortez joins us once again to talk about St. Anne's and what the school has coming up, Catholic Schools Week. But first, experts remain hopeful about the future of COVID-19, but have been keeping an eye on an emerging variant. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.
Dear Winter.
A record 14.5 million Americans signed up for 2022 medical coverage through the healthcare marketplace. The increase in enrollment comes after President Biden's American Rescue Plan lowered costs for most marketplace consumers. Nearly 6 million people have new coverage under the administration, and it's not too late to sign up if you live in certain states. Enrollment remains open through January 31st in California, Kentucky, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, and the District of Columbia. Consumers who did not select a plan by the deadline may still have an opportunity to enroll. Certain life changes and situations could qualify you for a special enrollment period. For more information, visit healthcare.gov. Gas stoves have a much more significant impact on climate change than previously thought. Scientists at Stanford University found the emissions from gas stoves in U.S. homes have the same climate warming impact as that of 500,000 gasoline-powered cars. That's far more than scientists previously estimated. The study estimates gas stoves leak up to 1.3% of methane into the atmosphere. Now, methane is the main component of natural gas and is a strong planet warmer. It escapes from stoves even when they're turned off. In addition, nitrogen oxides, a byproduct of burning natural gas, are also released, which can lead to respiratory illness. And in some homes, the concentration of harmful nitrogen oxides can reach unhealthy limits within a few minutes. Is this COVID-19 surge winding down? Experts say it could be, but as Britt Conway reports, there's a new variant catching their attention now.
Words of hope. I am more optimistic about the pandemic today than I have been since it was declared a pandemic nearly 2 years ago.
Just hang in there. Things are turning around.
Take a look at this map. Some areas are still seeing new COVID-19 cases, but cases are declining or holding steady in almost half of states over the past 2 weeks. Health experts believe this COVID-19 surge could soon be behind us.
In another few weeks, the Omicron flash flood, not a wave, but a flash flood, will have largely passed.
But now there's a new concern, a spin-off of the Omicron variant called BA2, which is gaining ground in some countries like India and Denmark.
It doesn't appear to be substantially different with regard to transmissibility. But if you look at severity of cases and you look at the data from Denmark, it doesn't appear that the cases that are with the new variant, the sublineage of Omicron, are any more severe.
Pfizer and Moderna are both working on Omicron-specific vaccines, possibly for the fall or even earlier. In the meantime, the race for a universal coronavirus vaccine is on, one that would cover current variants along with future variants and even other types of coronaviruses, ones we don't even know about yet. I'm Britt Conway reporting.
There's something flashing brightly in outer space, and scientists aren't sure what it is. A spinning object releasing giant bursts of energy. It was discovered back in 2018. At that time, it was the brightest source of radio waves visible from Earth. And now astronomers are taking guesses at what it might be. The leading theory? It's what's known as magnetar. Those are the remnants of stars that have died, but they usually flare each second. This object turned on for about a minute every 18 minutes, which no other known celestial object does.
Operative word being known.
Living or not? Unknown.
Fermi's paradox. If they're out there, where are they? Maybe they're right there. I don't know. Weather trend for the past 10 days, and our average high of this week being about 43 degrees. That's 2 degrees cooler than what we experienced for really the first 3 weeks of the month. But we're going to end in a fine fashion. Here we are over 7th and Rangeline, 27 degrees, overcast skies, however, as the clouds have moved in from the south, from the north, moving to the south. Let's roll 26 in Carthage, 29 in Chanute, and 28 right now in Miami. And so there is the cloud cover. Tried to squeeze out a little snowflake or two. It didn't really amount to anything as it moved in from the north. So no travel concerns if you have to be on the road, and everything down to the south is looking just fine. Of course, here's the big storm system that's going to affect most of the northeastern portion of the United States this weekend. Our afternoon planner, however, results in sunshine after those clouds clear out and puts us up into the high 30s. It's all a result of the wind for what we're going to have this weekend. Coming in from the north today, but now watch it do the 180 as we get into Saturday morning. And that's what feeds us temperatures into the mid-50s for Saturday and Sunday. Speaking of Sunday, a football day for Chiefs Kingdom and no weather concerns. The entire Midwest staying dry, whole lot of sunshine. Bengals Chiefs kick off right at 2 o'clock on KOAM. And here on Fox 14, right after the Chiefs game, we transition out to SoFi Stadium, not only home of the Super Bowl this year, but also home of the NFC Championship game, where that's about 10 to 15 mile per hour wind. But obviously, you don't have to worry about Southern California. So please sit back and enjoy that on KOAM and Fox 14. Look at February, off to a great start, and then Mother Nature says, no, it's time to even up, folks. Little wintry precip there from Tuesday into Wednesday and a massive cold front. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Special guest in studio right after this.
Want a new Honda?
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Fortunate enough this morning to be joined once again by Michael Cortez. She is the principal of St. Anne's Catholic School in Carthage, and she's here letting us know about National Catholic Schools Week.
Yes.
Principal Cortez, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Earlier, we were talking about how Catholic Schools Week gives schools a chance to kind of pick a day a week and celebrate community, celebrate students, celebrate staff.
Yep.
And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is you also pick a day to celebrate the nation.
Yes.
How exactly is St. Anne's doing that this year?
So I had this idea. I lived up in the Jefferson City area for years, and I did community theater, and we met a young lady named Callie. I did a Christmas Carol, and Callie was actually Tiny Tim, and her mom was in the play, and we just all became kind of friends, and we grew up together. And then when my son was in middle school, Callie was in middle school, so my son and her kind of grew up together. And she's Miss Missouri.
I'll be darned.
It's been awesome to kind of watch her like go from this little 9-year-old into Miss Missouri. So I thought, how can I get her to come and help support her in her journey? So when we were doing Catholic Schools Week, I was like, Nation. And I was like, how can I incorporate? And so it actually became so I just decided to pull people from different faiths and different backgrounds. And so they're going to do an assembly that says, how does Christ work in your life outside of the church? Because as the kids are in Catholic school, so they get their faith all the time, every day. Yeah. But at some point they leave that nest, and they still need to know that Christ is working with them. So we have Dr. Mark Westhoff is a dentist in town. He's coming. Senator Bill White is coming. Nice. And Callie Cox is coming. And they're going to do an assembly. I also have Callie coming and talking about her platform, which is inclusion. She worked at Camp Barnabas for years. And so she's going to go in the classrooms and talk to the kids about inclusion. And then they're going to do an assembly about how Christ works in your life.
I find it interesting in the fact that you went out of your way to make sure that inclusion and diversity was a part of Catholic Schools Week. What do you think it teaches and shows the kids a part of this assembly? The fact that, yes, we're celebrating National Schools Week, yet we're including everybody in our celebration.
Right. Well, I always say I don't know if I could be an administrator of a public school, because my number one thing if kids are mean to each other for any reason, it's like, did you see Christ in that child? Did you see Christ when you made that decision? Because we're called to see Christ in all. And that idea of we are one body, and it doesn't matter what our faith is, we're one body, we're one group. And so I always preach that philosophy. And so just including people and just making sure that they understand that part of being a Christian is to love no matter who the person is.
It's interesting you say that. You can't imagine being an administrator of a public school, and you brought up Jeff City. You got a little Fulton Hornet pride in you.
I do.
For those of you that don't know, Fulton's a school in mid-Missouri, and that's where Principal Cortez, I believe, you joined us from there, right?
Yes.
Now, but I did.
Well, I diverted over to Father Tolton Catholic School for 1 year before.
Oh, you were at Father Tolton. Okay.
I was at Father Tolton for 1 year.
But that transition that you made from Fulton to Father Tolton, I've read that you felt there was something missing in your life.
I did.
How would you describe that feeling and what you were missing, and why St. Anne's has become your home?
Big time. So my parents were both ill, and it was a very kind of traumatic time, and they both were very sick, and I was having a hard time. And just juggling being a theater teacher, which is a lot of hours. And so I would sneak off into the church during my plan period and go do a rosary and go sit with Christ. And I realized that every aspect of my life had become Christ-based except for my job. And it took away from my faith. I couldn't do certain things, like evening and stuff. And I just felt there was an emptiness. And I always say that I remember sitting at church and I was just praying and saying, I only feel complete when I'm with you. And I heard this little voice that said, go into Catholic education. And I mean, I've done theater since I was 15. I never thought I would leave teaching theater. I loved it. But I just felt like I needed to feel complete in his presence and give everything I had to him.
Well, St. Anne's in the 4 states is very fortunate
thanks.
to have you. If you could reach out, if we were to pretend that your students and your staff and everybody that you work with and you lead were in this room right now, what would you tell them? What do they mean to you?
In this crazy world that we have right now, it's hard. Every day I start at 4:45 with phone calls from teachers that they're sick, and how you juggle this, and then everything is stressful, and I get to work and one of my kiddos walks in with a big smile or gives me a hug, and it's like, all good, everything's good. And we're a family, and we support each other, and we love each other. And I don't think I'd ever want to be at a big school. As an administrator, I like my little school and the close-knit family that we are.
And if you'd like to learn more about Catholic Schools Week, the 48th annual Catholic Schools Week, and what she refers to as a little school. I think it's really more, it's family.
It is family.
It is family. They have a wonderful website, St. Anne's Catholic Church. You can find them. They have a marvelous Facebook page too. And then when you go to the main church page, you'll find a drop down that will take you to with all the school information. Michael Cortez, I want to thank you so much. Number one, for your vulnerability and telling us those stories. Number two, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Principal.
Thanks.
And happy Catholic Schools Week.
I'm excited for it. So excited.
We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Indigo.
It's time to honor today's four-state hero, Bob Thornberry, Asbury, Missouri native, captain in the U.S. Navy. He served from 1951 until 1971, serving 3 tours during the Vietnam War. We thank you, Bob Thornberry, today's four-state hero. For almost 30 years, deaths from car crashes steadily dropped in our country. Recently, that number's been on the rise, taking the lives of drivers, passengers, and pedestrians. Now the federal government has a new plan to keep Americans safe. Michael George reports.
This is a national crisis.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says U.S. roads are becoming deadlier. Preliminary data shows more than 20,000 people died in car crashes during the first 6 months of 2021. That would be the largest number since 2006. The number of pedestrians killed is also on the rise.
As people drove at higher speeds, more recklessly, more distracted, it is disproportionately impacting some Americans more than others. People of color, Native Americans, low-income communities.
In an effort to lower deaths, Buttigieg is releasing a new national roadway safety strategy. It includes rethinking speed limits and studying greater use of speed cameras. There's also $6 billion in grants for safer road designs, including bike lanes, better lighting, and crosswalks. Some of those designs have already taken place in several cities, including here in Hoboken, New Jersey.
We've increased the time during which pedestrians can cross the street.
Mayor Ravi Bala says there are also dedicated lanes to protect bikers and curb extensions that protect pedestrians and allow traffic to flow better.
In the last 4 consecutive years, we're one of the only few cities in the country to have 0 traffic-related deaths.
Our goal is 0 deaths.
Buttigieg says getting there will also require automakers to make safety features like auto braking available in more cars. Now, one part of a comprehensive plan designed to make U.S. roads safer. We'll be back with another look at your forecast when we return.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:32. Let's take a look at today's top stories. The Biden administration's COVID vaccine mandate for healthcare workers is now in effect, but the 4 states has an extension. Healthcare workers in 25 states and the District of Columbia had until yesterday to get their first shot of COVID-19 under the mandate. They must be fully vaccinated by February 28th. Healthcare workers in other states, including all 4 of ours, have a little more time to get those first shots. The mandate was frozen in these states until a Supreme Court decision earlier this month okayed the mandate. The mandate covers healthcare workers at facilities that participate in Medicare and Medicaid. 2 Southeast Kansas cities receive a share of $23 million in federal grants to increase public safety and healthcare access in the state. The NEOSHO Memorial Regional Medical Center in Chanute will rebuild and repair 3 boiler units with a $175,000 grant. There's also a $35,500 grant for the NEOSHO Police Department to buy new equipment and furniture for its new offices. The department's old offices were closed in 2016 due to the condition of the building. The officers are currently housed in City Hall until the completion of the new building in a few months. 2 of the 9 suspects in a 2020 murder in Lawrence County, Missouri find out how long they will be behind bars. A judge sentenced 23-year-old Gary Hunter Jr. to 40 years in prison and 26-year-old Deanna Parks to 30 years. Both took plea deals in the murder of Sarah Pascoe. Prosecutors say in 2020, Hunter and Parks, along with 7 other suspects, kidnapped Pascoe and a second woman, drove them to a well where they shot the women and left them for dead. This is the well where the shooting happened. Pascoe was shot once in the head and died. Prosecutors say the second victim hid under Pasco's body and pretended to be dead as Gary Hunter Jr. fired into the well. That woman survived and was able to tell investigators where they could find Pasco's body. Missouri Governor Mike Parson calls for increased funding for higher education in the proposed state budget for the next fiscal year. Some of that increased funding would go to Missouri Southern if the budget passed. It would give the university $30 million for a health science innovation building. It would also provide a $1.4 million increase for the school's core budget. University calls the proposal encouraging, but points out it's just the first step in a 5-month legislative process.
Yeah, I think our campus community is very pleased and hopeful based on the governor's recommendations, both for the core budget increase and the one-time funds, including for capital.
The budget would also provide more than $700,000 for a proposed center for digital media and virtual production. Well, you're about to meet a very old man, maybe 200 years old.
Oh, I thought she was talking about me.
No one really knows how old Jonathan the tortoise is, but it's believed he's probably 190. It is known that he was gifted to Sir William Gray Wilson in the year 1882. Now that's good enough for Guinness World Records to name him the oldest ever of his kind. Jonathan was brought from the Seychelles to the remote island of St. Helena, and Wilson would later become governor there. Photographs from that time show him grazing in the garden of the governor's residence. These days, Jonathan is fed things like cabbage, cucumbers, and carrots by hand because he's lost his vision and his sense of smell. Veterinarians say he can still hear and he remains spry.
See, he's got a one-up on me. He can hear.
Yeah.
But I am with Jonathan, and I would like to invite him to join the Get Off My Lawn Club.
Well, he obviously had a big lawn that he lived on, so if he still does, grazing, get off. Hey, that's his grass.
I was just glad the story wasn't about me when you started off with, we're going to meet a very old man. I thought maybe that was your toss to weather. All right, I've got to get a little serious here, Tanya, because behind me we have a bridge collapse in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I want to reiterate that. This is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania that we're talking about. That is a commuter bus that you're looking at right there. Happened about 5 a.m. our time. You can tell this section of the bridge absolutely gone. It was snow covered. What we're getting right now from the Pittsburgh Public Works or Public Transportation Department, no serious injuries reported. No serious injuries reported. Luckily, the bus stopped short of where that thing collapsed. It did break a natural gas line. Coincidentally enough, President Biden is scheduled to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in just several hours to talk about an infrastructure bill that includes bridge repair. So we will keep you updated as we make our way through that. Now, as we get to our 4-state weather, and that actually is part of that system that's going to dominate the northeastern portion of the U.S. As we get here in the 4 states, we take a live look over 7th and Rangeline where we sit at 27 degrees. Our temperatures have been very, very stagnant because the cloud cover moved in. We do see some bump ups to 30, whether it be Oswego, Welch, Chanute actually back down, but we'll get up to 30 here by the time we get to about 8:15. Heavy cloud cover, no precipitation to speak of. This thing tried to drop a few snowflakes up to the north very, very early this morning, but it won't hamper travel at all. And the northeastern storm, so we were talking about the bridge collapse in Pittsburgh right there, and this thing is going to dominate from the mid-Atlantic all the way to the northeastern portion for this afternoon into tomorrow morning. We are very fortunate. After a cool day today, we're going to be up into the mid-50s for Saturday and Sunday with plenty of sunshine. Pretty good south breeze coming in, 15 to 20 miles per hour. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
He said that I am an alien.
It's become a familiar nationwide refrain, staffing shortages in school districts. However, in NEOSHO, Missouri, there's a new program to help those shortages. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky has how a new program for high school students aims to help while giving students workforce experience.
The NEOSHO school district is unfortunately no stranger to staffing shortages.
We started losing staff members. We've stayed understaffed in our custodial department.
This lack of staffing, specifically in the custodial department, has made it harder for the district's custodial team to keep the district clean, something that's become even more important during the pandemic.
Well, it just makes it harder to get the schools clean and disinfected like they should be.
To remedy this issue, the district has launched a new program to get more staff members. Who would they be hiring?
Hiring students. I hope to have more hands to help get our schools clean and safe.
The idea to hire students isn't new. Multiple school districts across the country have been testing it out amid nationwide staffing shortages. Here's how it would work. All applicants would need to be NEOSHO high school students and would need to be at least 16 years old. They'd also need at least a 2.0 GPA and have reliable transportation. The district says they hope it can not only help with staffing, but also give students valuable work experience.
I think it's a win-win for our school system, and I think it's a win-win for our kids. Maybe we instill some work ethic in them where they are getting paid, and then we're cleaning our schools and keeping them good for our community, our students.
It would give students the chance to learn some new skills and alleviate the ongoing workforce shortage.
I'm really excited about this program, and our community's excited about it too. I have a lot of people approach me and ask me about it, and I've had a lot of positive comments on this new program.
In NEOSHO, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
So far, 4 students have applied to the program, and coincidentally enough, the NEOSHO School District custodial team is currently 4 people short. Made that our question for our morning Instapoll. Did you work while attending school? And right now, an overwhelming 89% of you said yes, you were juggling a job with the classwork. Of course, you can take part each and every morning, whether our Facebook page. If you want to go directly to the poll, koamnewsnow.com/vote. We'll be back with some startling news about your phone and tech devices and why they may not work by this summer, right after this.
An urgent warning about older cell phones. Major cell phone carriers are boasting higher speeds thanks in part to the new 5G rollout. But they're also set to phase out 3G networks this year, meaning many older cell phones will become obsolete. No data, text, or calls, including to 911. Isabel Rosales shows us how on the gadgets that may soon no longer work, from your home security system and cars to medical devices.
A 20-year era is coming to an end.
The 3G shutdown is a natural evolution in the technology world.
3G is making way for the much faster 5G network. The tech experts, like Tom Camber with the AARP, are sharing an urgent warning.
The level of gravity is very high for us.
He says many Americans are not prepared for the wave of 3G devices that will soon lose connectivity. Older cell phones, some car navigation and emergency services, home security systems, and even some medical devices like emergency alert pendants might be useless without taking action. Camber says one group is especially vulnerable.
Older Americans are most at risk from this transition because, first of all, they're the group that tends to hold on to devices a little bit longer.
And I think it happened because
Tino Perez says he has seen firsthand the reluctance to upgrade.
They're more afraid to the technology, especially older people.
He warns those customers could be left in the dark without access to Wi-Fi at home, no more texts or calls.
Obviously, if they're using this type of phones, they're going to be out completely.
Even to 911.
I don't think this is on a lot of people's radar, to be honest with you.
Colonel James Manny, head of state police in Rhode Island, is working to get the message out.
Well, very simply, it's very serious. If you do not upgrade your 3G phone, you'll be unable to connect to 911.
Camber says, don't panic. It's a golden opportunity for some digital hygiene.
The first thing we want them to think about is just, this is a moment to take an hour and just do a check through of what kind of connectivity you have in your house that is mobile based.
If you have a 3G device, consider upgrading now. Or contact your providers for details on next steps. An upgrade doesn't have to break the bank. Cell phones can run under $200.
Don't get upsold on something that's not what you need.
I'm Isabel Rosales reporting.
I would love to find a 5G phone for $200. I didn't know that was possible. Here's some important deadlines to mark on your calendar. AT&T shuts down 3G next month, T-Mobile by July, Verizon by the end of the year. Supply issues are impacting a favorite winter pastime. Some dealerships are already sold out of snowmobiles. In fact, people who ordered their rides last March, as in March of 2021, are still waiting on the orders. One dealer says he'd normally have up to 300 snowmobiles in stock. This year, they've only had about 120. Inventory is an issue for four-wheelers and motorbikes. That's affected as well. Dealers say COVID and a lack of assembly workers are also playing a role in snowmobile inventory. We'll be right back with more after this, but first let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
At Area Hearing and Speech Clinic,
Major overhauls are in the works to help get America's education system back on track after nearly 2 years of the pandemic. Kevin Cork has more on the strategies to help kids get the most out of school and set them up for success.
Children cannot wait any longer. They've suffered enough.
Drastic times call for drastic measures. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona says now is the nation's chance to reimagine how schools operate by improving the way students are taught and expanding critical services to promote academic development.
It's our moment to finally make education the great equalizer, the force that can help every student thrive.
The Education Department announcing Thursday 4 areas of focus for 2022, including closing learning gaps, increasing pandemic recovery efforts, creating more affordable and inclusive college opportunities, and working to help make sure those pursuing higher education land a job in their chosen field.
So much fun!
Addressing students' mental health also a priority, with federal health officials reporting increased rates of depression and anxiety among school-age kids throughout the pandemic.
We must make up for lost time. Our schools must offer increased access to mental health supports for students, wraparound programs, meaningful and authentic parent and family engagement.
Going forward, schools are also being urged to offer a minimum of 30 minutes of tutoring 3 days a week for every student falling behind in their studies because of the pandemic. Let's take a live look outside of 7th and Rangeline, and also to breaking news coming out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Once again, that is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where a bridge collapsed. A snow-covered bridge collapsed about 5 a.m. our time and had a commuter bus on it. At this point, the Department of Transportation saying there are no serious injuries as a result of this, but coincidentally enough, President Biden is actually on his way to Pittsburgh later today to talk about a spending package, an infrastructure spending package that involves maintaining and upgrading bridges. This, of course, is that big nor'easter that we've been hearing about that's going to hit the East Coast for tonight into tomorrow. They could get as much as 12 to 24 inches of snow as you track up the coast. Here in the 4 states, just the cloud cover. If we can get rid of it, we'll get a little sunshine and begin our warm-up. Sitting at 27 degrees right now in Joplin over 7th and Rangeline. Not a whole lot of 30s on the board. We've got Oswego and Welch there. Everybody else pretty much mid to high 20s. Now this afternoon, a little bit cooler than yesterday. We made it up to 45 at Joplin Regional Airport. We'll go high 30s, throw a 40 in there every now and then. But the key factor is going to be what happens tonight into tomorrow. Watch the wind do the 180. And as soon as it begins to move in from the south Saturday morning, we got warmer temperatures on the horizon. Saturday, we're up around 54 degrees. So how about Sunday? Well, on KOAM at 2 o'clock, Bengals Chiefs, Arrowhead Stadium, clear as can be. Kickoff temperature around 41 degrees. And right here on Fox 14, right after that game, kickoff at 5:30 between the Niners and Rams. Oh, only 63 degrees in LA. My goodness. We still can't complain because we've got a great end of January before February comes up and bites us. We got a big cold front that's going to appear from Tuesday into Wednesday. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. President Biden vows to nominate the first black woman to the Supreme Court. The president says he will name his choice to replace retiring Justice Stephen Breyer by the end of February. President Biden formally announced Breyer will step down at the end of the court's current term this summer. And the Biden administration's COVID vaccine mandate for healthcare workers is now in effect in more than 24 states that did not challenge the mandate. In Los Angeles County, COVID cases are starting to decline, but a top health official says it's too soon to relax vaccine and mask rules. And as the world marks International Holocaust Remembrance Day yesterday, survivors of the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp in Poland commemorated the 77th anniversary of its 1945 liberation by the Soviet Army. The ceremony comes as many nations grapple with rising anti-Semitism. Let's check in with Michael with a final look at your forecast.
A little bit cool today, Tanya, but can't complain. Setting up for what's going to be a marvelous weekend. We're looking at closing out January with temperatures in the 50s on Saturday and Sunday, jumping up into the 60s for Monday.
Well,
my bad.
It's okay.
Okay. We were going to tell you a story about a police officer who arrested a DoorDash employee but still delivered a woman's food.
The police officer delivered it?
Yes.
That's a good guy. Yeah. Well,
Thank you so much for letting us put the good in your morning. We'll be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better weekend.
With the use of that